Everybody, Jensen Cummings here. Thank you as always for tuning in. Today is Best Served Podcast 293. We're talking from food truck to storefront, Puff Truck Pizza, Best Served New Volume 3, Episode 5 of 8 with Eric Davies out in Elburn, Illinois. Important concept here. For me, I kind of had to eat a little humble pie as we jumped into these two series of new that we're doing with Ching Ren Hugh of Look Who's Cooking and Eric Davies of Puff Truck Pizza kind of simultaneously. You know, being a restaurant guy, having such a strong restaurant background, I kind of did think that the food truck was just a mobile version of a restaurant. It is a very, very different style of business. It has a different interaction. It has a different expectation. It has different challenges, to say the least. And so it's been really rewarding for me personally being able to kind of navigate this. So I'm excited that we're getting into some of the guest coach part of this series and bringing some other people in that can share their wisdoms, their experiences, their trials and tribulations, their stories, because this is all about camaraderie, building community, not just in the community you're in, but across food and beverage and all of the people that dedicate themselves, right? And this channel, being Best Served New, is all about unlocking and amplifying the worth and work of people who feed their communities, food and beverage entrepreneurs. That's all of you. That's all of us. So I'm excited about this and to dig in. So today we're going to have TChad Montgomery joining us, 4 and 20 Bakers in Sylvania, Georgia. But first, I want to bring in Eric Davies quick to talk. Eric, good to see you.
Jensen, likewise. How are you?
I am doing well. All right. I want to just, as we always do, kind of check in from last week, right? We had Jordan Bush, CEO, founder of 7 Shifts on. You know, we talked about some of the things I expected to talk about the employee life cycle, talking about, you know, what it takes to kind of scale, talking about family a lot, since all 3 of us have deep family legacies in the restaurant industry, strengths and vulnerabilities, talked about your brother, your mother, how that dynamic works within the family. And as you look to scale that business, we also got in a couple things that I know are super, super interesting to you that I was not expecting, talking about funding and growth. So I was fascinated in that because he obviously has that tech entrepreneur mindset and that growth and startup mindset. And so helped navigate that a little bit. So wanted to check in, kind of what were some of the takeaways for you from last week?
Well, it's really interesting. Like after we had that conversation about the little mention of Nashville, I had a little exchange with a Facebook customer of ours. Well, they used to be a customer, and then they actually moved down to Nashville from this town.
Okay.
The Nashville area, and was giving me a whole bunch of like super valuable intel. He even gave me a street corner that has it's like there's not a lot of mobile vending that happens in this town. There's a very particular street corner that's next to a wagon tour and a bicycle rental for downtown Nashville. So he's like, you know, gave me some really good like neighborhoods if we were looking to establish down there. So it's kind of weird that happened, and all of a sudden this guy's telling me all these golden points about Nashville and good intel about that. So I mean to say the word Nashville another time, but it almost seems like it's a destiny type of thing.
This is exactly why I do this shit. I am such a believer in intent and shifting mindsets and communication. These are constant themes for me, because put it out there. Like, I don't know ever what's going to happen with this show. I never know what direction we're going to take. I never know what I'm going to learn, what I'm going to be able to impart, what somebody else is going to be able to impart. I just know you put it out there and people find you. People always find you when you put your intent out there. I'm excited about that. Don't know what's going to happen. Don't know if you end up there. It doesn't matter. Like you've accomplished something by putting yourself out there, because it's scary as hell. And it's such a challenge, and you're just barely trying to get by in this business. Yet now you're like, I can just see the energy in you. So I'm pumped. I am so pumped. We'll follow up. I want to know about that street corner too. I'm invested in your journey for sure. I'm excited about that as well. And have some connections in Nashville too. So I'd love to connect you there as like we get closer and closer. There's some great people out there. I think of like Brandon Still at Nashville Restaurant Radio, somebody you should be connected with. The legends of Chicago, the Mantuanos from, you know, Spiaggia fame are down there now as well. So anyway, I'm fired up, and I know I'm digressing a little bit. Let's get back on talking from food truck to storefront, something that we've talked about a little bit and I want to dig into a little bit more. So I want to bring in TChad Montgomery, 420 Bakers in Sylvania, Georgia. TChad, good to see you.
You too, Chef. How you doing, Eric?
Good, TChad. How are you doing?
Awesome.
We're going to get into it. You guys are very simpatico. A lot of overlapping, I think, ethos, a lot of overlapping style with the two of you in completely different markets, yet both in kind of smaller markets, thinking about the way that you navigate food trucks, the way that you navigate brick and mortar. So I think there's a lot for us to learn across the board here. TChad, I want you to just give us a little background, kind of lay down some groundwork for us, understanding a little bit of your path, then kind of understanding the footprint that you have currently with 420 Bakers. Just kind of lay that out for us.
Sure. I'm originally from upstate New York. I've been Southeast Georgia for 7 years. I started my business with a tent and cupcakes, then got a small food truck and focused on desserts and coffee and fresh squeezed lemonade. That morphed into dessert catering. I love the catering. I love pizza. I cut my teeth at Homestyle Caterers in Schenectady, New York. So I went back, learned how to perfect my pizza game, and I saw a need in the market. So I got a pizza food truck. I had it custom built with a porch on the back, where down in this area you normally see barbecue trucks, and there were only a handful of pizza trucks in a 100-mile radius. So it was easier for me to kind of jump right in.
Oh, I like hearing that. And then I know we'll get into a little bit more just for everybody watching, listening to understand. And now what's your footprint currently as far as multiple businesses that you have?
Yes. So we have the food truck. We have a brick and mortar. So we have a restaurant with the bakery inside. I'm a dessert guy first. I was a pastry chef at Hilton, and I speak sweet. So and then that morphed into being a caterer for a banquet facility, and now we do events there. It's a 400-acre facility.
Wow.
Beautiful spot, and it's just flourishing. And again, within 7 years, starting from a tent to where we're at, surround yourself with good people. That's what we always say.
Let's go. Surround yourself with good people. That's what I feel like. I'm in good company right now, because that is such a mindset and a focus of both of your who you are. And then it's an extension of your businesses. So I really appreciate that. We talk about Eric, fun is the secret ingredient. I can tell you have the same kind of just vibrant energy, which I think is important. And checking out your brand, it's fun. Like both of you guys are we're just trying to feed people and create some community. And the two of you have chosen, flour, water, salt, lots of sugar for you, especially TChad, as the vehicle for which to kind of communicate to that community. So I really appreciate that. All right. So TChad, I want to start talking about some of the struggles with what it takes to kind of scale the business, what that really looks like for you. What are a couple of the things that I know people ask you all the time, like, what did it take to get to this point? What did it take to get to this point? And 7 years is pretty quick, steep trajectory of growth. You surround yourself with good people. What's the struggle? What do you want to make sure of? Because what I know in business is location 2 is always the hardest, because if you see some success with unit 1, whatever that, if it's mobile or brick and mortar, you kind of say, okay, we can scale this. And location 2 doesn't land, and it starts to cannibalize and pull resources from location 1. And we've seen this time and time again. So give us a little bit of what Eric needs to be thinking about when you talk about the struggles of growth.
Okay. I think one of the things includes not just what you want to do. You have to find the need first. So, for example, I didn't see anybody making filled cupcakes, and my sweet tooth has its own zip code. So, one of our first successes is we made a filled cupcake out of Guinness beer, filled it with chocolate Guinness ganache, and topped it with Irish cream icing.
Come on.
Pizza trucks. So back to food trucks. When I moved to this area, Savannah hadn't even passed their food truck ordinance yet. And I already had a small food truck, the dessert truck. So I knew it was coming. So I, again, started looking at what was needed. And I'm from New York, so no, I don't barbecue. And I wouldn't want to barbecue against these guys down here. But I didn't see pizza. So again, I used my resources. I took a staycation, went back to New York at the restaurant, and I just did pizza, sauce, dough, bake, roll dough, and went with my strengths. Now, because I have a sweet tooth, I started doing something else people weren't doing: dessert pizza. You know, to me, again, I'm playing on my strengths. I'm going with what I know, and I know sweet. So, it's playing to, once again, it's finding what's needed, not just going out there saying, I just want to sell something. It's seeing, where you could possibly, squeeze your way in. And my target has always been Savannah, Georgia. So being an hour from there, I knew I needed to grow to get to a certain level to be able to compete and then thrive in Savannah.
Oh, this is good. I love this. And I think I know Eric agrees, because he's got the vehicle, right? And so you thought about the filled cupcakes, you're thinking about the pizza. These are vehicles for your expression. And he also has filled that then with lots of sweet and savory. So I think you're both on the same page there. I think that makes a ton of sense. Eric, there's a couple things I want to think about, and then I want you to ask TChad yourself a couple questions of kind of the grind that you're going through, because I know he's gone through it as well. So when you're thinking about the need, I think that's a very interesting thing. You already mentioned your friend in Nashville saying there's not really the mobile unit, so I think mobile makes sense. I think thinking about the food style makes sense as well. The other thing that's important as you think about developing your brand is you have to stay on brand. You have to stay on message. You have to stay focused, yet you need to be versatile. And unfortunately, what happens a lot is we start to hype chase a lot in this industry and just go after the next thing and the next thing, because we do see a little space in the market. Yet you have to make sure that it stays true to who you are, what you represent, right? And that can be a challenge, because all of a sudden, you're making dishes that don't speak to your brand, to who you are, just because you can sell some of them. And that's a vulnerability as you grow, because all of a sudden, we talked about the yellow and red guys. McDonald's has done a great job of, there's a baked in expectation, pun intended, for what you get when you go across any market, with a little bit of regional nuance. And I think that's important. So I wanted to really highlight that. TChad, so important. Eric, let's open it up a little bit. What are you struggling with right now as you're thinking about Nashville, as you're just thinking about the food truck and having the storefront, as you're thinking about maybe an additional just brick and mortar with the food truck attached to it? What are a couple things that you'd like some advice on, some support on?
Well, our biggest struggle right now is kind of the thing that you're talking about earlier, that second location kind of cannibalizing the market and kind of sucking up all of the resources of the first unit. So when we started our food truck, we were kind of in the same position as TChad. I did lots and lots of research of the market in the area. Yeah. I did lots of customer research to make sure that my concept would be well accepted. And I searched all over social media and whatever to make sure that there wasn't another truck serving exactly what we were going to make, because if there was, I wasn't going to do it. Gotcha. So my idea was to make something completely unique. Now, I didn't invent the pizza pocket sandwich, right? But what I can take credit for is putting that into a food truck and putting it out there in this market. So I didn't invent anything crazy besides putting those things into a combination and then putting it out there. That has been an easy sell for us. Demand for our mobile unit is ridiculous. And then so the challenge that we're facing is we open up the brick and mortar partly to serve as commissary and support kitchen for the food truck, because we were doing such high volume on that, but also to be a standalone storefront for folks in this community to come and purchase the same items as the food truck and an extended menu as well. The challenge we're having is getting folks in the door at the brick and mortar, right? We can take the food truck, we can drive to where folks are. In fact, during the whole entire pandemic, we shifted gears from doing large gatherings and breweries and things like that to doing neighborhood events where we would park in a large subdivision. Everyone on the Facebook group knows about it. We have 75 to 100 people lining up to come and eat at my food truck that night. So we can drive to where the people are. That's the beauty of a mobile unit, right? Is that you have that flexibility to take it where the customer is. Your brick and mortar is always in one spot, and can only support or maybe the population of the town or wherever your market is can only support so much business per day, right? So that's the challenge that we're trying to figure out. So I guess my question to you, TChad, would be like how you said that bakery and that other large venue are flourishing. How did you make that happen? Because for us, it's taken. We've been open at this brick and mortar for about a year and a half now, and we're building slowly. But it seems like it's going to take another year and a half before it gets to the point where it's sustainable plus profit, just at the brick and mortar itself, because our overhead is so high. So how do you manage like the overhead of those brick and mortars, not totally sucking up the revenue from the mobile units? Is my question.
Well, there's no saying, Eric, if you grow a monster, you got to feed it.
I can see the t-shirts already. I like that.
For me, it was always the elevator pitch. When I first moved here, I was working at the local college, Georgia Southern, as a custodian, and I would stay up all night baking to bring my tent to the farmer's market, and that's how I got started. And at the college, I always had a target in mind, and I always had an elevator pitch. So anybody who would listen.
Do you remember your first elevator pitch, TChad? I love that. I love the hustle, the humility. Do you remember any of those old elevator pitch? I want one.
I sure do.
Let's give it to us, please.
I love cupcakes, and my favorites are filled cupcakes. We do a banana pudding cupcake. That's a banana cake with homemade pudding, cream cheese icing. We put a vanilla wafer on top. Do you like banana pudding? I start with trying to find something common.
The answer is yes. I'll just answer that. I love banana pudding. It is like my favorite part of barbecue places, especially like of Alabama style barbecue places. Do a lot of banana. I'm into it. I like everything you're saying right now.
So because if I can get the first couple seconds in, my next question is, I would love to bring somebody, because I set up a tasting, and I set up a tasting for the president of the college, with a garbage bag in one hand. So after that tasting, then it just started snowballing. But really, you've got to use your network. And, my dad always said, if you lay down with dogs, you get fleas. So it's who you spend time with. I went after whales. I went after change agents. I went after people who could help me get to the next level, and also what value could I bring to their business. So when I moved from cupcakes to fresh squeezed lemonade, because cupcake sales, they just needed a zhuzh, I went to local farmers, and we picked 80 pounds of strawberries when my sister came to visit. She was in for quite the surprise. But now those people with the strawberries were talking about my strawberry lemonade and my cupcakes. So then it was, hey, can you put this on your social media? So however many customers, followers you have, now they're getting my influence. So I just basically strategic partnership helped expand the word. So barbecue sauce. There's a local barbecue joint when I first started pizzas, and I did a barbecue pulled pork pizza with cheddar and sauteed onions, but I used their barbecue. I told you, from New York, I don't barbecue. So I used a local brand that was known, and now all of their outreach, I started to get some of that as well. A strategic partner, that was huge. I had some business. I used the Veterans Business Association. I used our local business incubator, and my veteran rep had always wanted a restaurant. And I said, well, look, if you do this, I'll do that. We formed a partnership, and she took care of all of the administrative work, all the business paperwork, and I focused on research and development. And focused on my skills.
You are not alone. That's what I'm hearing. You are not alone. You've already talked about on this episode. We've talked about it multiple times that you put your intent out there, you communicate, you stand for something, people find you, right? And that is what TChad has done to the nth degree. I am so grateful that you've shared all these stories. That level of hustle and humility and communication is like everything that I'm not and I'm trying to be every day. That's literally what this show is about. So I cannot thank you enough for sharing that. Eric, like let's brainstorm a little bit. Where does your head go? There's somebody in town that's doing X, Y, and Z. Like, who are the resources that you're stuck on the truck, you're stuck in the brick and mortar sometimes. It's hard as hell to get away. We talked about you even being able to shoot a little TikTok video as a challenge. So it's hard to look outside and see who's out there waiting for you. Who's out there waiting for you? Let's think about it a little bit. Throw some ideas out there, Eric. This is great.
Yeah, so I love the idea of collaborating with other businesses or with other business folks, you know, like that rings with me. One of the examples that I am kind of been marinating in my brain over the past over the winter time here is that we've been doing a couple of food truck appearances at a local distillery where they make really, really good bourbon. And they have really good cocktails, and we serve there.
What's that distillery? Let's give them a shout out. Make them more likely to collaborate with you in the future. Who are they?
Yeah, they're Whiskey Acres. We actually have a couple of dates booked with them already for this season. So we got like one a month coming up there. But my idea is we also we're not Southern guys, but we do a barbecue pulled pork sandwich and a pulled pork pizza, kind of like you were mentioning, TChad. But the idea being of making like our regular barbecue sauce and using their bourbon, and having like a smoky bourbon barbecue sauce, and then using that for our pulled pork. So that's kind of that like cross-pollination of like their bourbon in our sauce in the pork that you can get, and have that kind of like multiple experiences in one shot. So I've been thinking about that kind of thing, but you know, I think maybe we need to think more on the fundamental level, right? Like you're saying, getting involved with your Veterans Association, like maybe we leverage more of our Chamber of Commerce around here, or find other business associations around that are local. Because I've dabbled in that a little bit, but haven't really seen a whole lot of return on that yet. But you know, that's something that I probably am missing out on and should be exploring a lot more.
Yeah, TChad, I want to touch on this and kind of let's have this be the kind of last theme that we focus on, because I think it's important. You mentioned your sister coming and picking strawberries. That's such an important thing, I know, for Eric, because his brother, his mother, like it's a family business, right? And we know the greatest strength and a big vulnerability. You can't fire family. Like there's a lot of dynamics at play. And so I think that's important. Time is the variable. It is such a challenge in restaurants. We, especially in food, we get so tunnel visioned. It's so hard to see what our return on investment for our time is. And some of the great entrepreneurs in food are like, I value my time at $1,000 an hour. And like, look, sometimes that's not the reality. Sometimes you're worth a nickel and a penny, and you got to hustle and you got to carry the trash bag. And I think it's important. Yet it's a mindset of thinking where you're going to spend your time. And I think that's important. So TChad, how do you get out of the muck? Look, sometimes you need to be the one icing every single one of those cupcakes. And sometimes that is not a good use of your time, because you need to be working on the business, not in the business. Time. How do you manage that? How do you deploy your attention?
I think one of the best advice I've ever gotten about why you work for yourself is because you get to choose whatever 16 hours a day you work. You know, but Chef, I think you would use the term, it was something about changing from owner to operator. You know, you got to know when to delegate, and a lot of time is when your back's against the wall. You know, so now, you know, I have my daughters, you know, I pay them to put stickers on cups or to fold pizza boxes, you know, and we do it together. So now we're still spending time together. They're still earning money. But while I'm, you know, working on the point of sale, they're, you know, getting, you know, 200 cups ready for the next event.
TChad, Eric has a young son. It's been part of the legacy we've talked about a lot. He is bound and determined to create a family, extend that family legacy, and have a future. So you're speaking truth right now, because that's so important. And now let's add parenting to the things that we're talking about in this, because I think it's absolutely right. It's hard to untether the two. So I really appreciate that. So family, how else? You mentioned having good people. You mentioned the partnerships. Where do you, how do you analyze your strengths and weaknesses, and then kind of play to your strengths and hire your weaknesses? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, your SWOT analysis.
Yeah.
Right. That, you start there, and then, it's your brand. For me,
Let me just tell people: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and what's the T? I always forget.
Technical.
Oh, we'll have to get back to it.
We'll circle back.
That was a specific acronym for a way that you analyze your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and something. Oh,
yeah.
All right. Well, we'll get back to it. Don't worry. Sophie will put a link in the comments so we all know what SWOT is. Yes, we got it. All right. So break it down for us. How are you thinking about that?
Sure. It's know yourself and know your product. I put my product up against anybody, and especially, my target, has been Savannah, Georgia.
Yep. And
Savannah, like you're Chicago, like you're Nashville, they bring it, right, Eric?
Yeah.
So if you don't bring it, so that's, and you had said that, Chef, you're only as good as your next plate. I use the same analogies. So when I first started, I told people, if you don't like what we serve, I said, if you're going to spend your hard-earned money here, I'm going to back it up. If you don't like it, I'm going to absolutely give you your money back. So you put your money where your mouth is.
Gotta put your money where your mouth is. You gotta stand for what you stand for every time, not when it's convenient. And I'm
gonna go one step farther, because I'm told I'm a little competitive.
Let's go.
When we first started doing strawberry lemonade, for example, there were other vendors that sold lemonade. So when I saw somebody walking by with a cup, I would bring somebody a free cup of lemonade. And I'm saying, hey, I noticed you like lemonade. If you like ours better, would you buy ours next time? And that's what I did. And they soon stopped selling it.
That is, TChad, come on. That is hand-to-hand combat. Like, you have got to pay attention to what's happening around you. There are so many opportunities, and the T is threats. Thank you, Sophie. The T is threats. That's competition. That's vulnerabilities in the market. That's all kinds of things. Vulnerability to a pandemic and carry out and delivery food. That mindset needs to carry all the time through everything. You guys have both mentioned your kids. I think about like carry out food. I'm totally going to go off on a tangent, but it just popped in my head and I can't help myself. But like, we do so many things to cultivate relationships with kids because we know they're the actual decision makers for where people dine. We know this. And so the little things, cliche things like, here's the crayons. Imagine the family waiting for the pickup in the neighborhood, in their car, waiting in their car for you to finish their dish, Eric, right? Their puff. And they're waiting in the car, and the kids are going crazy in the car, and mom is freaking out, and dad is white knuckled. Imagine if you brought them the proverbial crayons to their car while they're waiting. Do you think that they will never, ever, ever, ever forget about that level of hospitality? That's what TChad's talking about. It's the swagger to have the confidence to walk out there and cold sell somebody strawberry lemonade. And it's the hospitality to recognize that you're going to bring value to them, not just a transaction that leads to them buying the strawberry lemonade. It has to be both. So, I appreciate that. I don't even know where to go from this. You both got me fired up today. This was a great, great episode. TChad, any last thoughts for Eric? And then maybe Eric, any last little quick question? We just got a couple minutes here.
Eric, I'm just going to throw in, I love what you're doing. Your pictures made me hungry.
That's it.
People buy with their eyes. But also, again, I would stay up all night baking, and I was thrilled when I had 2 hours left to sleep. I was like, oh, cool, it's 3 o'clock. I'm going to sleep for 2 hours. But I always made sure I had samples, because if to buy with your eyes is one thing, but like you mentioned, the crayons, if you're over there with a family and you just gave them, 5 minutes where kids are trying something, and kids will hurt your feelings because they're honest, right?
No doubt.
But it's just, if you can just think what is going to take you from good to great, and that you need to work on, you need to do something for your business every day, it'll come.
That's it. I appreciate that. Eric, anything else, or that's a mic drop? I feel like that's a good way to end.
Yeah. I mean, it's just good to see that, like you're saying, in that 7 years of your path, that you're now where you're at. It kind of gives some hope for us or for anyone really that that they can make it up to a great spot in that amount of time. So, or probably takes most folks longer, but that's our goal, is to kind of follow in your footsteps there,
Well,
TChad.
you can see it's not going to be easy. TChad
Yeah.
is hustling. He is communicating. He's got the humility. That's what's going to take. Absolutely. Yet there is a path. It's not an easy path. It's a lonely path as an entrepreneur. There is a path, and I think this is why I'm so grateful, TChad, to you for coming on. I love one of my business called Fortune Cookie Concepts, because everything I say is like a quippy fortune cookie. So I really appreciate all of your quotes, because it does. It's like, it's just something that you can grab a hold of and say, when the shit hits the fan, I just remember something. And I think it's so important. And if your brand is something that other people remember because it's meaningful to them, that's how you win. If there is winning in this game, you're always in startup mode, no matter how far into the game you are. But TChad, I cannot thank you enough. I'm inspired. This is going to help Eric. Absolutely. Everybody tuning in is going to get some value out of this. And I can't wait to come get some cupcakes and some pizza the next time I come to Georgia, my friend. Thank you so much for being on.
My absolute pleasure, Eric. I hear for you. You know, you're doing great already. And if I get to Illinois, I'm definitely swinging by.
That's
Absolutely.
it. All right, TChad, you have a great rest of your day. We'll let you go. Cheers.
Take care.
All right, Eric. Awesome.
Yeah, that was great.
Awesome. I knew it was going to be good. He was just dropping nuggets. That was amazing. So I think we're both going to have to watch this back and pull all those quotes. Good thing I saw Sophie behind the scenes here taking notes. There's lots of good stuff in here. How'd that feel? That felt like it really landed a lot of the same values you have, a lot of the same motivations you have. What are you feeling? What do you think?
Yeah. It seems like there's a lot of the same thought process, a lot of the same path that he took to get where he's at, that we're kind of at least with the same intent, trying to go that same, down that road too. And like I said before, it's nice to see that he's being successful doing it. So even if right now it's a little bit challenging for us to be profitable at a brick and mortar and a food truck or whatever, it's nice to see that you can work it into something that does work. So
yeah, it's multidimensional. I think that's the big thing from the business aspect that TChad's talking about. He's got the events, he's got the brick and mortar where it's got the stability, he's got the mobile so you can go to where the people are. So I think it's kind of understanding all the dynamics of the potential of your business and the market that you're in. So next week, I'm excited, we're going to talk about kind of growing yourself into new markets. What does that look like when you're in multiple markets? And so we'll have another guest coach on. And I want you to think about Nashville specifically. What are the questions that you're asking? What are the questions you don't know to even ask? Let's get into that a little bit, as we'll have somebody on with us that has grown into multiple cities in the food truck model, understanding what that looks like. How do you think the same and differently as a brand as you think about a new market? So we'll get into that. All right, Eric, appreciate you. Get back to it. You got a lot of hustling and communicating to do, my friend. TChad, set the bar high. Appreciate you. Have a good one.
All right. Thanks, Jeff.
Cheers. All right, everybody. That is it for today's episode. Fire. Absolute fire. TChad Montgomery, 420 Bakers in Sylvania, Georgia. Absolutely check them out. If you know, I'm sure you know already. And if you don't, get down there for sure and support a human like that, a business like that, and clearly delicious food as well. Best Served Podcast 293. Food from food truck to storefront, episode 5 of 8. In the comments, as always, check out the full series. You'll also be able to see an article coming out from TChad talking about kind of this dynamic, and it's a good read as well. So appreciate you all as always for tuning in. Cheers.